Hi everyone, I'm back with another video for the Season 8 PTR, and I've been cooking some setups, this time about the Spiritborn. I think Spiritborn is looking really good in Season 9, not only thanks to this new unique item here, which I believe could be a very powerful build, but also Spiritborn just got nerfed by far the least compared to all the other classes. So I think Spiritborn is going to have just several really high-end builds out there compared to the others, and it's actually going to be a really good class to play. It was already pretty solid in Season 8 from my perspective, and some things got a bit weaker, some things potentially stronger, and we have this stuff here that I want to show off in particular right now. So I haven't played with this yet, so I don't know the exact mechanics, but this could be maybe in addition to some existing form builds, for example, Rock Splitter. So I have a setup for that as well if you want to see that. But more importantly, I made a build specifically for those pants that might resemble something you have seen before, which is the Varshan Spiritborn. So we could probably see something similar like that come back, and I want to show you what I cooked here. In case you have not seen that, in Season 8 I made the Varshan Spiritborn with the seasonal powers that was then like a week later nuked from orbit because it was crashing the servers effectively. But this is a setup that was briefly the strongest build out there basically, at least for the Spiritborn, and that I used to also get like a rank 1 on the unofficial leaderboard for a little bit until other people pushed it a bit higher. But that was a kind of a fun scenario. So basically the idea here is that you just try to trigger the pants as much as possible. So it says each attack damages close enemy for X of your thorns and also poisoning damage again. So this gives you two components to scale here. So first of all, you need a lot of thorns damage, but also potentially you could scale the poisoning part of this with Noxious Resonance. So typically you go the Noxious Resonance route when you play a poison build on a Spiritborn and you explode those poisons, which is actually something I'm not doing here right now. So they changed now how Noxious Resonance works, but I will cover this in like a separate video. I have some ideas for this as well. But for now, this is just the Prodigy's tempo build, giving us all the cooldowns that we need, even if you're running a Razor Plate. So we can get tons of thorns here and scale those pants. Now, an interesting thing that Ava pointed out to me is that this tooltip says each attack, which usually specifies basically every single hit that you do, which would be ridiculous. And I don't think this is how it works. This is probably just a tooltip mistake here. I imagine this is once per spell cast and not once per hit, because once per hit would be basically Varshan Spiritborn build levels of broken and also crash the servers again. So I hope that there's thought about that. And I actually made this whole setup thinking that this is going to be once per spell cast, basically. But we'll see exactly what will happen on Tuesday. Maybe all the servers will crash and this thing is going to get nuked from orbit. But let's just assume that this is somewhat reasonable and procs once every time you press a button. And in that case, we just try to maximize other generic damage bonuses, because Thorns is kind of hard to scale. Rock Splitter, for example, does this with just getting all of the basic attack buffs, and all of that actually applies to the Thorns triggered by Rock Splitter, which comes from the skill here. But that's not what we're doing here, and this doesn't have the craziest synergy with those pants. Instead, I just go for mostly buffing the Jaguar Hall. So this is also what we have done previously with the Varshan build, where we just try to get as many procs as possible of this Jaguar Hall, and you can get to the point where you hit single targets something like 100, even 150 times per second. So you can trigger Jaguar Hall like 5, 6, 8, maybe 10 times per second on each target, giving you this extra damage proc. And this is also why we want to just giga scale the number of hits and our attack speed. So we effectively double dip on attack speed. We try to go for as much as we can. We try to cap out our attack speed cap 1 and then try to get more from the ferocity here. So we have something like 3-4 attacks per second with Quill Volley. And Quill Volley also just has the highest number of hits as well in order to trigger the Jaguar Hall. So we have the rebounding aspect that gives us double the hits, and it starts with 8. So we get 16 per cast every time we press Quill Volley, and you can do it like at least 4 times a second. And there's other stuff going on, like the Scourge is constantly proccing, we have the Hunter constantly going off with multiple hits and so on. So there's a lot of hits that you can produce, and that gives us lots of these Jaguar Hall procs. And then we just try to scale as much as you can in terms of generic damage multipliers, because there's another thing about the Jaguar Hall, which is that it actually double dips on certain generic damage multis. So this is something I actually discovered back when I made the Varshan build. So for example, we have the Plains power aspect, the Mystic Circles. And this can give you a ridiculous damage modifier. We get, for example, here 25% per ferocity stack. And the setup currently has 15 ferocity stacks. So we're talking about like a almost ×5 multi just from standing in the circles. And then that double dips into the Jaguar Hall. This is like some unfixed bugs from Season 6 that I recently discovered, basically. And this is actually kind of like the foundation here, I guess. Now, the thing is that this whole setup would work without double dipping as well, but I guess this might become really powerful thanks to that. And we'll see exactly how this will play out. I don't know exactly what goes into the Jaguar Hall and boosts the damage again by another multiplier, because I know that the Plains power works, and I think stuff like Starless Skies works, for example. These are just kind of like natural features we include in the setup, so I'm not specifically building into this. It just happens that the damage is increased because of those effects, and then the Jaguar Hall is increased again because of those effects, and I don't really have any other alternatives to go for anyway. So I don't really expect this to be fixed anytime soon right now. It has been in the game for, well, half a year, and this is just kind of how it works at this point. So I will have to do a bunch of testing of like which effects actually work for this, or if like all damage effects just kind of go into the Jaguar Hall again and give it like an even bigger number. So for example, it has stuff like Conceited, which is a pretty generic damage bonus. We have stuff like Vehement Brawler, which is a pretty generic damage bonus. So all of that might also go into that again, but I have not specifically tried that out now to see if that is actually the case. So maybe you have to like pivot a little bit with some of the aspects or something like that. But effectively, this pair of pants might just be the carry and the whole like catalyst of damage for this build here. So the idea is we have the Thorns, and we just trigger it as much as possible by attacking very fast, and then we trigger the Jaguar Hall as much as possible to get even more out of it. So it's gonna play a little bit similar to like the typical Quillrody build. Technically, we could also play other core skills, or even something like Thrash or something like that. Thrash, for example, also has like a pretty high number of hits if you go Accelerated Thrash and then, for example, Savazontek. So this is another pretty good way of triggering the Jaguar Hall, for example. Or, maybe if stuff gets adjusted, then we don't even have to do Jaguar Hall, and we could do kind of like pretty much any other skill that triggers the pants and then can do some stuff here. But if you have played Spiritborn before, for example, something like a Quillrody or Crushing Hand or so, this is like a fairly similar playstyle feel that we're gonna have here. Since we have the Prodigy's Tempo, we kind of just reset all of our cooldowns in a matter of 3 to 4, maybe 5 seconds or so, depending on how fast you attack. So effectively, you just spam your Quillrody as much as you can, and then every few seconds you do one round of all the cooldowns, like a full keyboard piano basically every few seconds, and then hold down your Quillrody again. And this is kind of the playstyle here. So we go really fast. We have the Hunter to jump around from pack to pack. We have counter attack effectively permanently up for 100% dodge chance all the time. But more importantly, this also gives us extra thorns. There's a glyph for that, the Hubris glyph here. It gives you 3,000 thorns, which is roughly half of your total or so, a little bit less. So you kind of want to have the counter attack up all the time. And again, we reset this every few seconds. And if that is not enough, we can also put a point here in intricacy. It should actually be like this, I just realized. So this 1 point in intricacy will make it so that when you press counter attack before Hunter, it will give you all the charges back. So we have like a few charges, and then like this, you can just reset all of them. And in addition, you can also reset everything with Prodigy's Tempo. Then we have Scourge, which is just a damage buff and also gives you Vigor. So we don't have Kapeleka, that gives you like 3 Vigor casts and 3 like core skill casts all the time, for example. So we use this as a way of generating some resources. We also have, for example, the Lucky Hit chance to restore resource here and here. So this will just proc all the time, basically. So you just kind of get resources back all the time. It can even fuel something like the Quax rune here. So this will be effectively permanently up, and you get resources back pretty easily from the rebounding aspect, like the feathers coming back with the Quill Volley. And you always have like a pretty huge damage buff there. And lastly, we have Vortex. We group everything up with that. So you just kind of jump in, pull the entire screen together in like a tight pack, and we shotgun into the pack. And we have Armored Hide that gives us extra defense, block chance, and yeah, even a bit of extra thorns. And it's just kind of like a nice feature to have here, and gives us also Unstoppable, for example. So it's just permanently up as well. and we have very good defenses. Now there could be a few different variations of this. For example, I am running Loyalty's Mantle here, which is mostly there to boost the main Jaguar Hall, but it also does give us another Ferocity stack for the Plains Power, which has this insane multi. So I think this is a very good addition here. We could also try something like a Perdition Helm. We don't really profit from the core skill ranks. We don't actually invest into a Quill Volley as like the damage effect here. This, you see this has 4 ranks, for example. So we don't really care. But Perdition is also a very powerful helm. It also has, for example, extra like a hit chance that can trigger our stuff like Ahu rune a little bit more, and like the like a hit restore resources here and so on. So it gives us more consistency. For example, here I have a bit of extra like a hit chance because we don't need the crit, we don't need the core skill ranks. We cap out the attack speed anyway, so I just went with that, for example. And similar, the Perdition Helm could help with that as well, but I think it's going to be overall a little bit weaker than this. So I have to say, I'm pretty excited to try out this build. This is kind of the setup that I made here now. You can also find this, for example, when you go to my Discord. I have my channel here with my builds, so the planners are already here. I covered the Hydra as well, so you can kind of just see the progress that I make while I'm on the PTR, and you always just find whatever I make and just play it for yourself. But I'll also link this here in the description, and maybe you're gonna also find some other cool stuff. So I have some ideas for the Spiritborn class overall with some of those changes they have made. So stay tuned for that. For now, this is what I got here. Hope you enjoyed my little overview of this. I'm gonna keep you guys posted with what actually comes out of this. I have high hopes, as I said, so we'll see. For now, hope you liked this video, and I'll see you guys next time.